All right, welcome to the conversation on TYT Network, where you know what we have? Fun conversations, certainly interesting ones. Michael Patrick Orishchin is back. We talked to him a little bit ago, and he is a Republican. He ran for Congress in the 53rd District of California. So, Michael, good to have you back.
Thanks for having me again.
No problem. So, Michael, I'm super curious what you think these days after we've gone through the mayhem of the interregnum, the lame duck session of Donald Trump, which was not so lame, although it did involve people ducking. So, we poll out today saying that 85% of Trump voters would stick with him if he was in a general election. 76% would pick him over any candidate in the Republican primaries if he were to run in 2024. So I'm curious, after all that you've seen, where are you on this? Are you still with Trump?
I'm totally with Trump. Yep. Yeah, I believe those poll numbers. I mean, I would even have expected them to be maybe even north of that. I think we got a lot of hubris in the Republican Party that thinks that they own the voters. But while the GOP and institutional Republicanism may seem fractured, I really think it's Trump that owns the party. So
that seems clear in the numbers. So I'm curious how you're going to handle it, because 54% say that they would be loyal to Trump. Only 34% say they would be loyal to the Republican Party. So now remember, this is the overwhelming majority of Republican voters. So if Trump was to start a Patriot Party, for example, and you were going to run for Congress again, would you run in the Republican Party or in the Patriot Party?
It's simply not going to happen. I mean, you see the kind of progressive agenda made its way into the Democratic Party. You're going to see the same thing. I mean, I think you're going to see a big amount of, we'll call it repatriotism within the Republican Party. I don't think it makes sense. Nobody can really make muster with a third party. I think a new party would be not only ill-advised, but it would have a real challenge at this point.
Okay, so what I'm going to skip.
Do you agree? I want to know what you think about that. You think a Patriot Party is a real possibility?
Yeah. So look, here's the deal, and it's a complicated question. And the reason why I was going to go on to other topics is because it really depends on what happens next. So if it had turned out that the Trump supporters were a minority of the Republican Party, but God, they're like around 40% or so. Well, then I could see Trump starting a Patriot Party, because Trump's of course obsessed with himself. He doesn't care about you, Michael, or any of his voters, or anyone but a guy named Donald J. Trump. So would he have destroyed the Republican Party just for his own ego? In a second, he would have done it in 1 second flat. And if you start a third party with only 40% of the support of the Republicans, yes, you will destroy the Republican Party and the Democrats will win every election going forward. That's why I've been against a third party in the Democratic side. That's why I started Justice Democrats to be within the Democratic Party, because a third party is ill-advised.
But we're going to have the same exact mechanism.
What's that?
We're going to have the same exact mechanism within the Republican Party, and a lot of it. I mean, the Republicans that were maybe initially never Trumpers, and then went along, wanted to ride his coattails through various elections. I think you're now seeing their true colors come out, right? Mitch McConnell, Liz Cheney, Bill Cassidy, everybody who wants to throw Trump under the bus, I think they're going to get primaried. They're just not going to find themselves with a lot of support.
Yeah, I think that civil war was super quick and Trump won it instantly. And I think Mitch McConnell's in a world of trouble and doesn't realize it. And the knuckleheads on TV don't see it coming at all. No, they just cannot read a goddamn poll, and they don't know any actual Republicans. Or they only know the elitist Republicans. So
or out here in California, Kevin McCarthy. I mean, what is he thinking?
Yeah. So to me, that's clear. Like today, we covered on the Young Turks, Michael Steele laughing and going, "You can start any party you like. The Republican Party is going to stay strong." No, you don't get it, brother. It's already over. So finally, on this issue, because I want to come back to what you believe, Michael. I just to answer your question, I don't think that Trump needs to start a new party because he already has the Republican Party.
He's got the party. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's clear to anyone paying attention. So obviously no one in DC realizes that, but everybody else does. So now, given that, Michael, I get it. You want to stay with the voters. I'm going to tell you that you can't win in 53rd district if you run again. You can't win anywhere if you don't support Trump in the Republican Party. I understand that. You could say that's not why. Okay, whatever. Okay, but then tell me why you are staying with Trump. So let's say, assume I'm wrong and you're not doing it for political expediency, and you really believe
exactly. It's not a function of political expediency. Look, I thought the crossover ideas that he had on populism, American sovereignty. I think his message resonated. Obviously, I didn't start. I think we talked about this last time. I was a Ben Carson guy. I was a Rubio guy, and Trump won me over. And I was tentative at first, but I think his policies showed efficacy, and I think there's little room to kind of dispute, the good effects he's had. So I'm not doing it from a standpoint of, hey, I'm loyal to Trump. He's just, he's had the right kind of political instincts. And I think he knew. I mean, I think the great irony is that, a guy who once owned, World Wrestling Foundation, knows that there's a picked loser. And in some cases, what you see between the Democrat and Republican establishments it's exactly that. It's like, the puppeteers can kind of controlling both sides, and you're sitting here watching real people go, no, that's not me. I'm not the establishment. And so in that way, it's quite ironic that he recognized that Republicans in many ways were setting themselves up to lose happily.
So Michael, you said a couple of things in there we really got to dive into. So first of all, you said he won you over, and you mentioned one of the reasons was his efficacy. You get that for the rest of us, the polling seems to indicate 55 to 60% of the country, but not necessarily 55 to 60% of the voting electorate, thinks that sounds crazy. Like what we saw from Trump in the 4 years was monstrous. And efficacy, he didn't do anything. Although, literally, the only thing he accomplished was a $1.9 trillion tax cut for the rich. So help us understand why
we talked about that last time. You can't make that case when you saw the number of people go off welfare. I mean, it's simply, I know, and I don't want to rehash our September conversation, but you have to align with the fact that the number of people who came off of the SNAP program and food stamps was meteoric. I mean, opportunity zones, First Step Act, the transparency in terms of medical pricing, which Biden has now repealed. The price of insulin shooting up. We had so many things that were really bipartisan that we didn't see. That I think we have to credit to Trump. I mean, even things that Obama started, what is it? The Apprenticeship USA program that Trump built on, which was a great, an opportunity for people to go, right into the trades. Biden bent over to the union push to cancel that program, but it had tremendous bipartisan support. So, I mean, you gotta fear when people hate, when you're voting against somebody or something, they're really throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's tons of things that I think people will come to find remorse in voting for Biden on.
So, all right, well, look, I'm only going to touch on it because you're right. We largely had this conversation. I want to move on to other stuff. Right, I'll just say, look, for the sake of the audience, Obama hands this guy a massive economy. Stock market's booming. Every metric is booming. It's an absolute stone cold fact. And then he destroys it by not responding to COVID properly. And Michael, every stat you're quoting is pre-COVID. You say, well, COVID's not fair. No, a leader responds well to a disaster and an emergency, and he bungled it in every imaginable way, including our lives. 500,000 dead now because that moron couldn't figure out how to manage his way out of a paper bag.
What is materially different about? I mean, the big joke for me was ostensibly Trump can't handle this pandemic, and Biden's got all the right answers. And then what does Biden do? He turns around and hires the same guy that Trump's got running the show, Fauci. And I don't find any material difference in terms of what this approach to COVID, Biden is showing, other than national mask mandates, not popular. Basically throwing the whole notion of warp speed under the bus, saying that, well, now we finally have a vaccine. I find it incredibly suspect that the day after the inauguration, the WHO comes out and says, well, you know what, our cycle thresholds for this whole COVID test, this PCR test, are way too high, which we all been saying for a year and getting banned on Facebook for saying. And all of a sudden it says, okay, that's, you're going to see a lot fewer false positives. So I'm asking you, what is something that Biden is doing materially different in facing down COVID?
Yeah, in this case, the culture matters a ton. So he is encouraging people to listen to science. So yes, that includes wearing masks. And Trump said, and Michael, you can't, look, I know, I don't know if you mean it or you don't mean it, but I'm going to assume that you do mean it. I'm going to assume that you do mean it. Okay.
Please.
And so Trump said that COVID was going to go away a couple of months before the election. And then the exact opposite happened. It peaked in October, November, December, and January. It crushed us. It quadrupled. He was dead wrong. He was dangerously wrong. And it led to a spike of the cases. And he told people that masks are no big deal. He flouted his ignorance, whether it was the bleach or he comes out of the hospital and goes, I think I'm immune. I don't know. Maybe I am. Why do you not know? Why do you not know as president? And so he never listened.
How can you explain?
He never listened to the doctors, and he encouraged others not to listen to them. He had them listening to the demon sperm doctor. Okay, no, telling people to listen to doctors and put on masks indoors in appropriate places does make a giant difference. Now, that's not the only reason why the COVID cases are going down, but they're down 76% in the last 6 weeks. Those are facts.
That's because of the PCR tests. Look, the guy who invented the polymerase chain reaction, Kerry Mullis, won a Nobel Prize for it, hated Fauci, thought Fauci was a total fraud. Suspiciously, the guy dies August 2019, 62 years old of a heart attack. I think the PCR test was never designed for anything other than amplifying DNA from crime scenes. Come on,
Michael, 100%. Hold on. Are you saying that guy was killed on purpose? By who?
I'm not saying that. I just think it's a strange time for a guy in otherwise good health. So my point is this:
so who would have killed him?
PCR test is not designed. The PCR
Michael, who
test
would have killed him in your theory?
I'm not suggesting that he was killed. I'm saying it's strange. I'm saying it was suspicious. It's worthy of looking into. The bottom line, PCR is wrongly used, right? We amplify RNA and DNA with PCR testing. So explain to me why the day after the inauguration, the WHO comes out and says, look, we were way wrong with this 40 count cycle threshold. I mean, come on.
Michael, so first of all, throughout this epidemic, you asked me a question, I'll tell you, okay? Throughout this epidemic, since it's literally a novel coronavirus, they changed a couple of things as they were going. So in the middle of the Trump administration, they said, okay, in the beginning, they were like, hey, we're not sure you should wear masks. Then they turned around and said, you should wear masks. Part of the reason was, yes, they wanted to preserve it for doctors and nurses. And by the way, that makes sense. But the other reason was because they weren't positive about the science because it's novel, it's a new coronavirus. And we learned many different things. There was a study that came out of Israel just about 10 days ago or so that said, hey, people thought even after you get the vaccine, you might be able to transmit it. But the new studies that we're seeing, because now there's a lot more people vaccinated, are showing that it's harder to transmit. So yes, science is not something where it's set in stone, especially when it's something novel like this. And the point of science is to experiment and learn and learn and learn. But if you reject the scientific method, you're left with randomness, chaos, and madness. So in that particular case about who, I don't know why the scientists made that decision and when they made that. But if you're implying that the World Health Organization is coordinating with Democrats and changing science based on that, that would require a conspiracy among all of the world's scientists, which is never going to happen and sounds cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Okay, well, look, you saw the number of people who were canceled of their medical certifications by the AMA for simply saying, hey, this is strange. We're looking at this. I mean, we're all scientists. Like you said, science is something where we bring the data to the table and we say, let's make some sense of this. How do you explain the flu being gone? The flu is, something that, taking 300, 400,000 deaths a year, and now it's attributable to an order of magnitude or 2 orders of magnitude smaller than that. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's not like we eradicated. It makes
perfect sense. I'll say this, and then let's move on to another topic. So you asked a question: why is there a lot less flu now? Because people are inside. You also get the flu from interacting with other people. So when you have masks on and you're in semi-quarantine, a lot less people are going to get the flu.
Yeah, well, then how do you explain the 500 deaths and the millions of cases of COVID?
Because
you can't have it both ways. You can't use the same argument.
They use the same argument both ways. Churches, no, Michael, it's very simple. So coronavirus is super contagious. So when half the population, or a little bit more than that, about 60% of the population listens to the scientists and wears the mask and does self-quarantine. 40% of the population goes, Trump told me it's no big deal, what's a big deal, right? And so what happens is, well, 60% of the population then is not getting the flu because they're all inside or they're wearing masks. But 40% are taking this wildly contagious disease of coronavirus and smearing it all over themselves and each other. They're going to church and they're singing and they're having a good time. They're going to restaurants, they're drinking beers, they're going to parties, and yeah, of course, we got skyrocketing coronavirus. Michael, what is the alternate theory? Are you saying that it's like all part of a government plan? Who invented corona? Was it Americans? Was it the Chinese? Because to me, all that sounds crazy. So you tell me, what's actually going on in truth theory?
Look, I'm going to be quick because I don't want to talk about coronavirus too much more. But 2015, we know the NIH. We know we moved this contiguous virus, this virus to the Wuhan lab, right? It had gain of function. It has so much contiguous DNA in it that matches HIV strain. It's impossible to be found in nature. And we were getting banned from Facebook and Twitter for saying these things a year ago. Yeah, and then CNN comes out last month and confirms exactly that. Yeah. So, it's like there can't be a temporal distribution on truth, right? It was a complete fake news a year ago. And now, okay, we can concede that yes, this novel coronavirus could have been lab born. Right, okay, and that's something that mainstream media outlets are now saying.
Yeah, no, Michael, I've never seen that. It's not true. But I encourage everyone watching: do not get stuck in your own social media bubble, whether you're on the left or you're on the right. Go and just please read something that you don't normally read on Facebook. Okay, go try to find actual articles, and not from like JimJablowski.com or Epoch Times, which is pure propaganda and total trash. Okay, just find an actual article that gives you the truth, or 8 articles, 12 articles. Don't just trust me or Michael. All right, let's move on. So all right. Okay, so I'm curious where your mind's at. 73% of Trump supporters say Biden didn't really win the election.
That's absolutely right. Have you read the Navarro report? Look, that's what's so frustrating, right? We won the hearts and minds. Trump's policies were effective, even though he was being, we were all being browbeaten that he's a crazy racist white nationalist. He triples his support among Latino voters. He gets 50% more of the black vote. People are not buying the identity blustering, okay? So we did win the hearts and minds. And then here we have these states that have victory margins for Biden, which are, on par with what you would expect for a close city council election. And and then you have ballots in question numbering in the 500,000, and so yeah, of course
none
we feel
of that
like
is
it was
true.
stolen. Yeah,
No.
100%.
No, Michael, you're talking crazy talk. Okay, all right, let's break it down. Let's break it down.
You're having me on to crystallize what is in the hearts and the minds of the Trump voter, right?
Yeah,
I am telling you, that's where we are. So if it's going to, and no courts didn't adjudicate this. They simply said,
yes,
we
they did.
don't have standing. No,
that's not true.
We didn't get to the court.
That's not true. Look, I got to clarify a couple of things for the audience because I
read the NavarroReport.com.
Yeah, that's a nonsense horse crap thing that I have no interest in reading. It's not facts. It's total propaganda.
It's absolute fact. No way.
Okay, so listen, Michael, we're gonna run out of time. So I got to ask you one last question, but I want to clarify to the audience. Okay, so number one, the Trump won the first election, 2016, through the Electoral College with only 78,000 votes in 3 states. That made the difference. Biden only won it by 43,000 votes in 3 states. They were both incredibly close elections in the Electoral College, okay?
That's what happens.
No one said that Trump stole it because it was a close election in 2016. Now, when you lose a close election, all of a sudden you guys cry your asses off like little baby and try to ruin our democracy, but I'm getting pissed. Okay, because you're lying. But okay, if Michael, hold on. I got a minute left. Michael, I got a minute left. Let me ask you something. Hey, let me ask you something. Michael, let me ask you something. You said, Trump tripled his Latino vote, doubled his black vote, et cetera. Now that actually, there's most of that is relatively true. Now it was small numbers, but he did do much better. Okay. So why, if the global elitists, and you said puppeteer at one point, don't use that kind of language, that's dangerous language. But anyway, if the puppeteers and the WHO and all these things that you think are real, why did they have Trump triple his Latino vote and double his black vote? Why didn't they just have him lose by a lot? Why did they all have him only lose by 43,000 votes so that he can complain about it and so you guys can make up all these conspiracy theories? Why didn't they have him lose by 2 points, 5 points, 10 points? Why didn't they have him losing support among Latinos and blacks? Why would they rig it in a way where it's razor thin?
It's razor thin because you have to catch up enough votes. You don't when you're finding 150,000 ballots that don't have a signature or are not tied to a voter who's registered, you have to just find enough to win. If you're behind, you find enough to win. That's how it happened. That's totally how it happened.
Okay, the most important thing.
That's why it's so tight.
The most important thing that the audience has to understand is that these allegations of fraud were adjudicated in court. There's 60 court cases.
What court?
Michael, your side lost every single one. You lost every single one because you had no evidence. So the things you said about 150,000 fraudulent, total lie, not at all factual. Every court, including every Trump appointee,
Arizona and
every
Georgia,
right-wing court said you guys are lying. There is no evidence.
Margin. Less than 12,000 vote victory margin in Arizona and Georgia.
Each one of those. Why the hell would you rig an election that close? That makes no sense. You guys are detached from reality. If you were going to rig an election, you know how Saddam Hussein did it, 99-1. If you wanted to be more subtle, you would do it like Putin, and you say, 65-35. If you want to be really clever, you'd make it 52-48. But you wouldn't make it a 12,000 margin in Arizona. That's playing with fire. If they're that smart,
that's just enough to get over.
Not risk things like that.
Fabricating votes, you have to just get over the threshold and be ahead. That's why
nobody fabricated votes. You guys had 60 attempts, 60, and you couldn't come up with one piece of evidence. So the fact is, Michael, honestly, I got to be honest with the audience because this is on air. That is nothing but a giant lie. Every fact. You're saying the 3 Supreme Court justices picked by Trump all lied against Trump? Are they also with this global conspiracy?
Didn't go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court did not weigh in on anything other than Pennsylvania changing voting laws. Clarence Thomas had a great dissent. Come on.
It went to the Supreme Court. It went to every court, every Trump appointee. I read the quotes on air, said you have no evidence. You're lying. You made it up. I'm just going to leave it there. Michael, obviously you disagree, but look, I want the audience to know one other thing. One, I appreciate Michael coming on because it's not just Michael. He's representing a ton of voters.
That's right.
of voters agree with Michael, okay? So do your own research. Do not go into your own social media bubbles and say, hey, Jim Jablowski and all the other lunatic right-wingers said this, or all the other left-wingers said this. Try to find objective reality. Read the court decisions for yourself. That's a perfect example. You could actually look up what they said, the actual quotes of the justices, and the judges, including Trump appointees, and then you'll see the reality. But Michael,
better than that, use the Wayback Machine and go to every Secretary of State website and actually look at the deltas. You'll see some very interesting things. That's how I did it. Go primary source.
Alpha, beta, omega, delta. I'm for all of it. Okay, as long as you're getting actual facts. Okay. All right, Michael Patrick. Orishchin, thank you for representing your side. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Cenk.
All right.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.